know why I thought you were going to have hubby with you.
Am I supposed to be here?
No. You guys are in the spotlight.
Am I supposed to be here?
Yes, you are. Yeah, you're definitely supposed to be here. Don't worry.
I'm not thinking.
You're wondering if you're meant to be here. No, you're meant to be here. You're meant to be here. Thank you for joining us, beautiful, beautiful couple. Maybe you guys can introduce yourselves and a little bit about you guys individually for the people.
Okay. I'm Timothy Gambiza. I'm pastoring God's River House here in South Africa. Melody's husband. And I'm also a professional. I work for an IT company. Yeah, that's who I am. I love Jesus passionately. I'm passionate about worship. I'm passionate about people. And I'm passionate about destinies and people fulfilling their destinies. Yeah, that's me.
Amen.
And my name is Nintendo Melody Gambiza. Digital Kanguru coming out. So my name is Nintendo Melody Kanguru, now Gambiza. I am wife to Timothy Gambiza. We've been married for a month now. We actually turned one on the 2nd. Yeah, 1 month on the 2nd of February 2021. I'm also in corporate, work in finance, and I am a minister. I love the Lord. I am saved. I run an organization called Hosting Heaven. It's a book that turned into a study guide that then has morphed into a planner, Hosting Heaven planner. And now we host conferences, annual conferences under the banner Hosting Heaven. So it's exciting to be here. And Remo actually ministered on one of it was actually our first ever, our flagship conference. And so it's such a full circle moment to be able to connect with you, just come on your platform. So thank you so much for trusting us.
I'm really glad to have you guys. And I think, it can be quite interesting. Even when I thought about it and God laid you guys in my heart, you always think like, okay, wait, what are they going to talk about when he talks about marriage? Like it's been a month, they're still transitioning. But when the theme came to me, which is actually of the series Marriage in Transition, I realized that we all experience different parts or different phases within marriage, and that there's no time limit to that. It's not only when you've been together for 5 years that you then can have lessons that you've learned, that you then get to grow together, and so, or you get to really understand the essence of the institute of marriage and what you've grown in. That can happen in a week. That can happen in the process of engagement going into and preparing for marriage. So I think I love the theme that you guys have, or that you guys came with for today's session of, the mental and emotional transition into marriage, which I think is quite important. And I know you guys shared a bit about your individual stories coming into, this union. And I think maybe if you guys can share a bit about that, just to kind of give a foundation to why the theme is the mental and emotional transition into marriage.
Okay. I think, thank you, Remo. I think that we have these ideals and these ideas in our head, all of us. And I think marriage is one of them. And one day you wake up and you're actually married, and it comes with responsibilities. It comes with permissions and indulgences on the other hand as well. But more than that, you are now responsible for another human being and accountable to another human being. So I think mentally, for me as a guy, I can't speak for her. I'll tell you, I don't know if I'm talking for the other guys, but I can easily do laundry and live out of my suitcase the whole month until I need to do laundry again without packing my clothes into the cupboard. But now that I'm married, can't do that anymore. You know,
Yeah.
there are certain decisions I could make on the fly. I always used to say I could leave a city in 2 hours and never look back. I can't do that anymore. So that's a mental transition. And emotionally as well, you are now required to be emotionally responsible, if I could say that. For example, you wake up, you're not feeling in the best of moods. It's not your spouse's fault, so you must get over it. If you are alone, that would have been okay. You can just
Yeah.
sit in pajamas and do what you want the whole day. But now she hasn't done anything to deserve that from me, so I must fix it and be the best version of myself to her. So I think that's a transition because you are faced with the prospect of doing life with someone and being responsible for their joy in the union. And I think that is a lot going on. So that for me has been my approach to the theme, and I'm excited to chat, about it.
Yeah.
Hmm. And just to piggyback on what he's saying, um, we both got married on the other side of 30, and already at that point, most of your formative years have already passed. You've passed your formative years, you've entered into the space where usually in your 20s, that's when you discover what you like, that's what you discover when you discover what you don't like. You start creating a lot of very almost like you can't say permanent habits, but that create your personality, that create who you become and how you show up in the world. By the time you're in your 30s, in many instances, you have a lot of set ways.
Yeah.
And it's that will take a lot of God, a lot of the Holy Spirit, a lot of intentionality for you to change. And in many instances, also, you have started actually grounding yourself, whether it could be in the space of career path, it could be ministry path, purpose path, and just grounding yourself, settling down. And so when someone enters into that space, there is a lot of intentionality that has to take place in terms of your mental space and your emotional space. You literally have to be intentional about allowing somebody in. It's very easy for you to date because somebody's going, they're going to go sleep at their own flat, right? And you still get to spend the evening on your own. They are there when you give them access into your life. But when you actually now get married, you realize that it's really an intentional, it's a very intentional journey, and you have to be very kind with each other and gentle with each other. Um, and one of the most important things that you're going to need to make sure has taken place before that marriage is that you guys are compatible. I preach the gospel of compatibility
Yeah.
like crazy. You guys have got to be friends, and you've got to have a lot of things in common because that's going to really assist your journey. And I'm super excited to be chatting more on that. But it's such an intentional journey, and you have to really like the person for you to be able to throw away some of your comforts. Some of the things that you value that don't necessarily, nobody's going to get killed if the dishes are not washed before you sleep, even if you thought someone was going to die before you got married, right? But after you get married, you got to make that decision and say, do we spend time together or do the dishes get washed? And sometimes you nourish each other with each other's presence, and you do life together for that night, and you still get your dishes washed the next night. So it's transition. It's a lot of kindness and a lot of intentionality. I don't like using the word compromise. I don't know why. It's such a I just get a lot of intentionality.
Yeah. That's beautiful. And I think, Melody, you touched on something that I think others may experience that I'd like to hear how you guys dealt with it. Since you guys both got married after 30, I'm sure looking at, the people around you who are probably getting married, the people who you guys are both respectively, in your own, and in your own lane and in your purpose and unknown, I'm pretty sure there's also expectations from others, it's like, oh, Pastor West, Mamuruti, and it's like Mel hosting heaven with, the guy who's going to like be this powerhouse. And I don't know, maybe family was more accommodating, but how did you guys navigate or handle the expectations from others, that and how did that impact on you guys' relationship in terms of preparing for marriage? Did that influence at all? Did it impact on both you guys at any point?
Yeah. Well, on my side, I'm so grateful for family, for the family side of things, because I always think to myself, I think that two things protected me. It was my calling. Um, I think that every single calling comes with a certain gravity, or certain weight that comes with it, and it covers you. So much so that, where many people are being asked, when are you getting married? If they're being asked 10 times, you're likely going to be asked one time, right? Because they have an understanding that there is a purpose over your life, there is a ministry over your life, and you can't just marry anybody. And so I do want to appreciate my family for being very, very, very thoughtful and very kind around those areas. The immediate family, you always have one of those, um, random relatives from, like, you don't even know them by name, but they will ask you, when you're getting married. And also, I think the second thing for me was, also something that I'm very public about, is a previous engagement that I was in. I think after that engagement hadn't worked out, people were very thoughtful, very kind. They literally just kind of stopped. Even the 1% that would ask about marriage, they kind of just say, you know what, when the time is right, God will make it happen. And I was just so grateful, to have family that is thoughtful in that way. But I do appreciate that there is a lot of women who might come from families where it's Bible, it's the story on every dinner table every time you meet relatives, and it can become very stressful. It can become very frustrating. It can You can tell yourself that it's not affecting you, but when you really sit down on your own, it can truly be something that can give you the pressure that pushes you into a relationship that you actually don't want to be in. Just you want people to keep quiet. So I'm super grateful for family, and I'm super grateful for my calling, because I do believe that it covered me in those spaces while I was in waiting. And I knew, I remember God telling me that when the calling needed a covering, I provided. I'm going to repeat that for somebody. When the calling now needs a covering, God will have to provide. Even if I didn't deserve to get married as Melody, when the calling now needed a covering, God provided for it. So I don't even know what would have happened to me had I not said yes to God's call over my life. And this is an encouragement to some women that could be watching, that sometimes your husband, your spouse, is hidden in your yes to your purpose and your assignment. Because when you say yes to that assignment, God will always provide covering for it in due season.
Sure.
Wow.
Hami's like, yeah, I'm the fulfillment of that covering, ain't I? We love to see it. And for you, Tim, how was that?
I think for me, it's the lesson of life that I've learned, I think, at an early age. We make the mistake of living life from the outside in instead of the inside out. So you're letting people drive agendas. You're letting, sometimes it can be people as well-meaning as parents or friends, or you're letting people drive agendas, their expectation of who you should be. I remember going to areas to minister, and they'll be like, how can you be a pastor and you're not married? Like, to them, you first need to get married before qualifying for the calling. So marriage is a qualification for the calling. But going back to my earlier point, I think once you learn to live inside out, then you dictate what happens in your life. Life is not happening to you. You are, as it were, happening to life. So I think I committed early on, and I'm grateful for Mel, because we decided to have a relationship outside of the public domain. I also previously had been engaged. It didn't work out. I thought that was it, but God knew it wasn't. And we just felt, as people were in the public space, we can't fail at this thing twice and say anything about it again. So I think we went 18 months in a relationship on a need to know basis. Only the people who needed to know knew. And I think that protected us, that clarified what God was doing. And by the time it was ready to be birthed into the world, No one could stop it. So I think you want to. Jesus says something powerful. He says that wisdom is justified by the children. You don't want to always answer to people when they ask you questions. Sometimes you must let the results speak for themselves.
Yeah.
So, to those who are saying what they were saying, I'm sure now they can look and see that it was well worth the wait and she was well worth the wait. So I think it's very important to live from the inside out.
Yeah, I really like what you said. I love it. I love what you said, living from the inside out. And I think we do sometimes struggle with that. And if we did that, we'd be much more at peace. We would literally be living in our lane and being able to live our purpose. And I think, the generation we're in, the Instagram, the reels, comparing ourselves, it can kind of become a lot. And we don't realize that if you really are living inside out, as you've beautifully said, it allows you to focus more on what you've been called to do and to focus on the internal happiness that you outwardly live out. So I think that's really beautiful. Yeah, and I think you guys touched on something quite that kind of characterizes your guys' relationship in a different way, which is quite also adds to the transitioning into marriage, because you guys were both previously engaged. I knew Mel was, I didn't know you were, but I think, how did that emotionally, because now we're also talking about the emotional and mental transition, right, into marriage. And now it's not just into marriage, you guys were both previously engaged. And did that make you guard your heart more? And what was the wisdom or the lesson that you carried through into your guys' relationship and even into your marriage? So I think Mel speaks about in her post when she spoke about your wedding, how there kind of is that luggage that you guys both kind of had, and you guys had to work through it. So what can you share from having gone through that experience and now coming together in union?
Sure. Um, Interesting. I think that no breakup is easy or palatable. Um, Even in cases where they may have been abused or whatever the circumstances were, it is still painful because you loved that person and a huge part of you thought this was it, and then you then find out that it's not it. Um, I remember there was a time that I, was really struggling, just coming out of my previous engagement. And I spoke to my pastor, and, he was very more of a rip the bandage off kind of person, not, coddle you. So he said a statement to me that I'll never forget, and maybe it will help in answering your question. He said to me, "You will be fine as long as you don't look back." And those words, even when I say them today, they are they carry so much weight because they anchored me in the reality that my future was ahead of me. Sounds obvious, but your future is not behind you. So saying you'll be fine as long as you look back literally translates to Lot's wife. Um, she never left Sodom. So when she looked back, she went back. And when she went back, she suffered the reality of what was going on in Sodom. She looked like sulfur had rained on her. So knowing that I'll be fine as long as I didn't look back helped me. Doesn't mean sometimes I didn't look back. Doesn't mean sometimes I woke up and I was wounded. In fact, when I met Mel, I was actually still healing. So maybe another day I'll tell you the story of how I went almost 6 to 8 months without really pursuing her because I felt I needed to start pursuing her once I'd healed completely. But that statement, "you will be fine as long as you don't look back,"
Yeah.
is the reason why I'm sitting here today.
Ah,
About my future.
amen. Amen. So,
Um, yeah, that's really powerful. And I also took strain, quite a lot of strain from that statement as well, because when he shared his story to me, I think that statement stood out quite a lot to me. And even though for me, I think my engagement had broken way earlier before yours, probably like a year earlier before his, I think. But I had done quite a lot of work, but the pain, residues of the pain were still there, and they might not necessarily have been visible in the conversations that we would have or the friendship that we had built. But the very fact that he remained a friend as long as he remained a friend was because I was not ready. I was not ready to open up in that way. And I think that also just the similarities, not necessarily in character of the two individuals, but the similarities in position, in the sense that in the ministry, I at some point in time I'd literally say to God, "This is not my portion. I'm gonna be a minister. I'm gonna be a minister, but I ain't getting married to a pastor. Okay, I'm not going to be a mamaruti. I refuse it profusely. I was just out of it now. I was completely content with being a minister. I was completely content with hosting the conferences and going back to my local church and being a worship minister there. Um, Getting out of church and going to my house and watching some type of series on Netflix, right?
Oh,
That
you're
was
the queen of the South.
the stuff or money haste. I was very happy with that, right? I completely said to God, I'm not going this route any longer. And I just want to talk to a woman that might be watching, that sometimes we've got to give people a clean slate. Somebody might look a little like where you've come from, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to paint them with the same brush. And it doesn't mean that they're the same person as um, whoever came before or how many other people came before. And so I literally had to be friends with Team and watch the way he did ministry and realize that there was a different way of doing ministry. And also try to figure out where I would fit if I said yes. And I should realize that there was so much freedom and so much liberty in his blueprints, right? Because there are some blueprints which are very structured. You're coming in, when you come in, you're supposed to look this way, talk this way.
Yes.
These are your boundaries, these are your limitations. You can't then become this if you want to become this. And I thought that that was that is how it looked everywhere. But with him, it was there was so much liberty, so much freedom. And he always used to say, there's no mold. You can create your own mold.
Oh,
And
beautiful.
even the structure of our local church, I love it so much because our local church really encourages people to flourish in their discipline. If you have been rightfully strategically positioned in industry, flourish there. There's no need for you to want to become an elder,
Yeah.
flourish in that space. If you're called into ministry, we will give you an opportunity to flourish in that space. If you are called in politics, we want you to be equipped so you can flourish in those spaces. And I think I was coming from a background where a pastor's wife had to act a certain way and had to look a certain way and had to, so that liberty gave me freedom to say, you know what, I think I can give this a try. I think I can certainly give this a try. And I also, it took me a while to also say yes to you, because I knew if I said yes to you, it's going to be my husband.
Yeah.
Like, when there are men who are ready, ladies, there are men who are literally good, good men who are ready and who are not going to play games with you, who are not going to give you some odd tests and tell you that you passed this one. I'm going to give you another one when you don't know. There's literally men who are ready and who are authentic, who are kind, and who are going to give you space for you to blossom in their vision. So yeah, it was an exciting opportunity for me to. It was just an exciting season for me to really throw away that fear as much as I
Yeah.
felt it. But I took joy in throwing that fear away and allowing him an opportunity to prove himself, and he certainly did. But it was not easy at the beginning.
Yeah. I love that. I was thinking now when you mentioned how Tim said that, there's no mold. no mold. And I was like, so let's organize a men's conference. Tim, you can be the speaker. For all the other brothers, let them know. Because I think, that's something I was also thinking about, how, Mel, in your own right, you were already walking in your purpose, and like you're saying, it's not like you are waiting to be mama pastor and, hey, okay, here's a pastor and I will just go into this ministry. It's like I have my own ministry. And in fact, he found you in that, he was helping serve you within your ministry. And it's like, in your own right, God has called you to this. And I think it's beautiful, actually. And you kind of answered one of the questions I had of navigating that as well, like having your own purpose and that compatibility with your spouse, with your partner, who may also be called to something else. And how do you ensure that you both live out your purpose together, and there's no that, like, so because I'm the man of the household, because I'm the pastor, so I will lead us and we'll now go in this direction. So I think that is absolutely beautiful, actually. That's absolutely.
But also just a point there, I actually have grown to realize that there are women with that grace, the grace to be able to enter into a vision and just completely become whatever they're told to become. I have watched other women successfully do it. And I had to mature to a place where I knew that that wasn't me, that that was not me. I could not and enter into a vision that was not where I couldn't fit in like a jigsaw puzzle and break myself up so that I could become something different. I was in my 30s, you know what I mean? If you're gonna get married to a 20-year-old or a 19-year-old, or maybe that is possible, or someone with a lot more grace to be able to sit into your vision and just assimilate your system like that. It's easy. I was very intentional about the people that I even permitted to have access to me in that space, this, the emotional, heart space of even considering him to be, like, to quote him. I had to make sure that whatever you're doing, I can have room in it. Because I had tried it before, the whole, you really like somebody, so you just say, well, if I stay long enough, then he'll change his mind, and then he will make room for me in this way, because I actually do know that God told me that that's how I'm supposed to navigate the calling space, right? So this is an encouragement to women that are watching, that are called. If God has specifically spoken to you about certain spaces in your calling and certain ways of you doing your purpose, and you are looking at this man, and you know for a fact this is completely different from what God has spoken to you about, and you know for a fact if you entered in there, you can't find your space. You're trying as much as possible to see where you're going to fit in. You can't see where you're going to fit in. You have asked where you're going to fit in. You have not been given an answer that makes sense. You have not, or you have actually you've actually been told God will give you grace. You've got to open up your sober eyes, right? Spirit of woman of God as you are, spirit led as you are, you've got to open up your sober eyes and say to yourself, practically, can I break down and enter into what He has already built and make this work? If you cannot, I'll tell you now, it will be a very painful breaking that God will need to do, because God will not change His mind concerning your purpose and your assignment. And so that's why for me it was such a special thing to be able to find Tim and just be able to watch how naturally and how easily I flowed into his ministry, and how naturally and how easily he just stepped in and covered me in my ministry. It was so special, and it's very difficult to find, and I was so grateful that I finally got something like that, because at some point I was like, I'm just not gonna get married then. I'm just gonna do ministry.
Yeah.
Literally, because it's difficult to find that synergy.
Yeah. And I think even on that, Mel, another thing I think I'll categorize more into women. I don't know if men do that as well, but I think, and I suppose I'll say men as well, but I think another mistake that we make is the assumption that your partner covering you in your ministry, or your partner being compatible in what your purpose and what God has called you to, requires them to be a part of it. because even as you're speaking now, being able to have someone who covers you or who protects you or who allows you to be you in that same space. I mean, I could assume, and maybe I'll be like, well, I hear you, Mel, and so okay, if my partner doesn't want to be on my vlogs and I'm gonna start talking about marriage and transition, and I know God called me to it, then like, you have to be here. Whereas for me, my husband supporting me is like, cool, we can spend time together, but you're gonna be with Mel for an hour, or okay, cool, yeah, use my laptop, I'll take a nap, or just allowing me to be me, or being like, I'm like, actually, you know what? Maybe I want to vlog on the beach, but I'm gonna have to drive there, And we assume it means this person literally, if God is calling me, we have to be in it together, and this person must love what I'm doing and must literally be one with me. Whereas it's like, as long as they actually know that God has called you to this and they're not actually interfering or hindering you from fulfilling that or even downplaying what God has called you to, that is still actually a lot of grace. And you don't find that a lot, where it's like, I hear you, but maybe don't talk about this, like, why aren't you talking about that? Like, that's changing it. And it's not about them being on it. It's not about Tim also being now a speaker, then being like, babe, why don't you want to be on my thing? It's just allowing her to be and to be amazing and to continue to minister the way God has called it to. So I think also kind of changing our view of what that compatibility looks like in purpose as well, because we see the power couples and they're always together, so we assume that's what compatibility looks like, the fact that, but it means their ministry, they're doing it together, whereas it's really not always that. So yeah. Okay.
A little bit of a transparent moment. I think I entered into a space where, like, when I was now praying for a husband, I was like, I don't want anybody in ministry. I just want someone with the financial muscle to back up my ministry. Like, he must be somewhere when I'm preaching. He mustn't even be around. He must send the mullah. He must probably, I entered into a space where I was very much okay with that. I just needed somebody that acknowledged the call. That would still, even if he didn't have a lot of words to speak over, the fact that your husband, the man that you're in covenant with, the leader of your family, lays hands on you and speaks a blessing over you as you're walking out to minister. It doesn't even matter whether he's on your level or not, or under or above. The fact that person who has been made head over you releases a blessing and actually releases you into ministry on its own is very powerful support. So I totally agree with that.
And I commend you. Thank you, Tim, for allowing our beautiful Mel to continue to flourish in what God has called it to. And okay, 2 more points. But I think what I'd like to know from each of you is, what do you love about the other, about your spouse?
I think that's very interesting to have a different answer for that question every day.
I like that.
I think the fact that I get to do life with Mel is a blessing beyond measure. Like, I always feel like I'm dreaming, because it's amazing to wait for the right person and for the right person to be the right person, where you don't need to be anything else but yourself, where your idiosyncrasies, your preferences, your worldview doesn't require an apology afterward, where none of you needs to be hidden for you to be accepted, where there's no judgment, where there's joy. It took me a while to get used to, but she dances in public. She dances to the music
especially
in the shop.
after you feed me, I dance.
The music in the shop, she'll
dance. You feed me, I dance.
Music in the mall, she'll be walking, dancing. I'm like, at the beginning, what is this person doing? But like, I realized that you can't have two of me. I'm very chill. So she balances me out completely in that. And I love that about it, just the joy. There were two, I prayed for my wife, and also at the same time, I didn't really pray for my wife. Let me explain. When Isaac got married, he was busy actually walking in the fields meditating, and there was Rebecca. His dad had made all the arrangements. So I kind of took the approach after my broken engagement that, Lord, I'm leaving this marriage thing in your hands, and I just focused on my ministry. So there were just two things that seem small, but to me are huge. For me, one was I must enjoy my wife's voice. I couldn't imagine a situation where my wife talking would irritate me because I want to enjoy listening to her. And I love her voice. She has a melodious voice, a lovely voice. And I also wanted a wife who could sing. Just wake up and sing. And she's a wonderful singer.
Yeah.
And I love her smile. I love her mind. I love her humility, her love for people. I love her ministry. I love doing life with her. So I think another thing I prayed for was, a good friend, a best friend, that I wouldn't need to outsource my friendship needs. So many couples, the problem is not actually the couple, but the people in the individual's life. So you may have a friend that she taught me this actually. You may have a friend that brings out the worst in you. And because that friend is close to you, you become a lesser version of the person you're supposed to be to your wife. So God in your relationship goes beyond the two of you. It goes even into your friendships. And, there's a lady who we had dinner with, called a mentor of ours in corporate, who said to us, always check the relationships in your life, whether they have the best interests of both of you at heart. There may be people in your life who may have your interest at heart, but not your wife's interest at heart or husband's interest at heart. So allowing all those words to govern the decision making, and sometimes making decisions and realizing you stepped into those very words means I've found a best friend in her, and I don't need to outsource my friendship needs to someone else. We actually enjoy doing life together and enjoy each other's company. I could go on and on. Maybe I'll write a book. But
oh man, I love it. Love is beautiful.
He says it so beautifully, and I think we have such a similar worldview, and we many of the things that he said are things that I would have said as well. And I think that's one of the things that made us really good friends, and ultimately made us really good partners. We disagree on very little. Literally, I like in my head, I say I don't think I am the right person to get on a platform where I'm supposed to like pour into people about disagreement. I must say, at the moment, like we've had, like literally, like we agree on so many things. And so I think for me, the ability to find somebody that sees the world the way you see the world, the ability to have been able to find someone who loved Jesus the way I loved Jesus, and also just who had a specific passion about the Holy Spirit, like like I did. I remember our first conversation ever on our first date, which was a coffee date, a couple of months after the Hosting Heaven uh, book book launch.
Yeah.
We spoke about, I think we spoke about two things that I still remember. It was just basically talking about our previous relationships and then talking about the Holy Spirit. It was just like just like when two people love someone together. So that passion, that type of a passion, like such a deep, passionate relationship that he has with the Holy Spirit, and his desire to know more of the Holy Spirit really drew us together. And I've just watched Tim. I've watched us serve each other in our ministries before we got married. The way that I would just be able to enter into his ministry, in many instances in the worship side of his ministry, and just serve in that sense, right? Without necessarily wanting any recognition in any way, and just loving that serving and watching him just serve so effortlessly in Hosting Heaven. I mean, he was there at the initial Hosting Heaven conference. He's the guy, the logistics guy that holds things together. At the More Lord, my music video, when we shot it, he's the guy. Like if you see the pictures at the back, he's the guy that's asking me, "Are you good?" Have you ate? Like, what do you need? I have one specific picture that I really love where he's preparing for a Sunday service, a sermon at 1 in the morning while we're filming the last portions of my music video. And he's just sitting there on the laptop because he's been so busy just serving. I think when I saw that picture, I was like, I'm not making a mistake. Every single place he's been there, the hosting event brunches, he's the guy that's sitting somewhere at the corner so that people don't see him. Now he gets to, now thankfully, now thankfully they get to know him, but he will be sitting at the corner like an ordinary, a person who came for coffee, but he's there covering me,
Sure.
And we do it with such little effort. I've never felt like I asked him to take me to a ministry engagement and he was too busy. Like there's never been anything that stood in the way of us being together at spaces where I felt like I was ministering. Where you do have some instances where you feel like you're asking for too much.
Yeah.
When you're asking for something, I've never felt that way ever in my relationship with him. And so it's really good doing life with this guy. Like I totally enjoy doing life with him, and our lives have found a way of just naturally syncing. And it's beautiful. And he has
Amazing.
incredible mind. I love my husband's mind. I could listen to him all day.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I think in closing, any one of you or both of you can share. I think it's really been amazing just to hear and get those wisdom and the nuggets of wisdom in terms of mentally and emotionally transitioning. I think, yeah, it's for some, it may have been very difficult to open up your heart again to love, to really trust God, to help you, whether it's in seeing how my purpose fits with this person, those no-nos you said, you're like, God, no, not another pastor or not ministry again. But what would your final remarks be on just the aspect of emotionally and mentally transitioning into marriage?
I would say trust God.
Yeah.
God is big, and everything you want as a child of God is in God. Anything you go outside of God to get will cause you to short circuit. So I believe that finding my wife in God has been the greatest reward ever. It's the gift that keeps on giving. Bible says um, a father can leave an inheritance of houses and so on, but only the Lord gives an understanding wife. So if God knows everything about you and He has everything for you that you can't even imagine. I mean, I used to think about the fact that the odds were so low that we were ever going to meet. We were probably going to cross paths later in life, both married, maybe, God forbid, but frustrated. And, but God made it so that we met now and we get to enjoy that together. So I think that Matthew 6:33 has become such a cliche, but it is so true. Like, just trust God. Even the transitions are gonna come, they're unavoidable. The
Yeah.
things you learn about each other. Don't try to avoid them. Don't avoid difficult conversations. Also learn that from them. Don't try to just follow the path of least resistance. Don't enable dysfunction in each other.
Yeah.
The transition is going to be difficult, but pay the price. Pay the price.
I love
Pay
it.
the price, and it will be well in Jesus' name.
Man.
Yeah, so good. I think just for me, transitions they can be messy, they can be rough. Transition is essentially moving from one point to the other. And right now, the picture that I have is of the disciples in a boat, moving from one land to the other. You're gonna put your feet on stable ground after a couple of hours. You will get there, and this is an encouragement to people that are in transitions and they're feeling, they're feeling as though the storm just keeps going and shaking them, and they literally feel like they're about to, they're about to sink, or the boat is about to sink. But if you just hold on through the transition onto the other side, you will get on solid ground. Be kind and gentle with each other. Allow yourself time to grow. Allow yourself time to fully realize the new space that you're in, because sometimes it does take the mind a little bit of time to actually
behind you. Yeah, yeah.
And you've got to be gentle with that person and not write them off, if you have been having a rocky transition. And I always say this, and I say this to my husband, because my husband knows how I like to keep the home, right? And since we've started, our new home together, he's a guy, right? He's a guy. Look, like there's places which no longer look like they used to look like when I was alone, right? And I always say to him, the question I ask myself is, am I willing to use my daily token of confrontation on this?
Sure.
Right? We have one ticket of confrontation a day. Like, you can address one thing a day.
I
Because
like
you want to be gentle and kind with each other. You want to give each other time, and you don't want to always bicker. You don't want a home that's filled with bickering and questioning and asking and pettiness. So I always tell myself, I've got one voucher a day, and I try as much as possible not to use it. And when I want to use it, I ask myself, in the grand scheme of me living with this man until 80 or 100 or 120, will do I want to use my voucher on this, right? Because when you keep being confrontational and asking questions and just being, when you keep a home that's not peaceful, you essentially are creating an environment where both of you are going to get frustrated. And so you've got to have, in that space, you've got to ask yourself, is this worth it? Can I use my lifelong voucher on this? Right? And if it's small, let it go. Like, let it go. And permit that person to see how you do things, permit that person to learn. And once in a while, mention it. But most importantly, just be friends and love on each other, because the truth of the matter is that when your best friend comes to your home and she leaves your dishes dirty,
That's true.
you're not out here talking about them and cursing them, because you love them as a friend, right?
Yeah.
But something funny happens when we have a romantic relationship. We have so much expectation on this person.
Yeah.
Be gentle with each other and use your vouchers very sparingly.
I like that. I like that. Well, that is definitely an aspect of, marriage in transition. Thank you guys so much for sharing your journey, your love with us, your ministry. May God continue to bless you guys. May you continue to speak love and life, to others through your guys' marriage as well. And may you continue to be happy with very little tickets and vouchers used. Yeah.
For more important things.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you.